be kind of a fun one. You know, I like making jars, and they're, you know, they're technical enough. You got to get the lid to fit right. There's a lot of different shapes, sizes, you know, styles of knobs and everything. But cookie jars was a fun topic, and I think it only, you know, it's important to talk about what makes a good cookie jar before we make a good cookie jar. So, you know, one thing that we were talking about here is you don't know what size cookies you're going to put in the cookie jar, so it's important to make it large enough. And the opening has got to be big enough, so it can't be, you know, a big pot with a small little top, because it's going to be kind of like one of those little raccoon traps. You reach in, you grab a handful of cookies, and now you can't get your fist out. So the opening's got to be big. You probably want a nice, you know, easy to grab knob, just so when you can do a quick open, grab, and go. So we're kind of keeping those things in mind while we're throwing the cookie jars. And I will kind of do, I'm using a red clay today. So this is SRF. It's a aardvark clay. We had a bag here. It's definitely a dark red. I might regret that, but I think they're going to turn out really nice, especially if we put a little bit of underglaze or bright slip on them. It has a little bit of grog, but not much. It's kind of like a soft grog while you're throwing. You don't notice it, but it fires like a kind of a deep maroon red. So I think that'll be nice. This is, I didn't weigh these out, but I'd say it's between 5 and 8 pounds or something like that. The way I'm going to do these, and again, this is just kind of my way of doing it sometimes, is I'll make the lid first, and I'm going to use our large wood rib to measure it. So a lot of the time I do use the wood ribs or something to measure things rather than use calipers, just because if I ever want to go make another lid, it's just always this measurement. Like, I always will just use that size, or a lot of the time I'll use like the wood rib 3, this size, for lids. It's nice and easy. It stays consistent. You don't have to go remeasure something as something dries. So I'm going to make the lid first. I'm going to throw it off the top of this hump. I'll measure it. We'll put that aside, and then we'll make the rest of the jar. So that's kind of my plan for doing this. I don't always use bats also, so that'll be a little bit new. As I was warming up kind of this morning, you know, I'm always having issues with sticking bats down. So I'm curious kind of what you guys think about when you have bat, you know, chatter. What do you do? What are the best methods out there? Because I don't always throw with bats. I'm always throwing off the wheel head and throwing off the hump. So I don't mess around with them too often. And part of the reason is because I get issues. So we'll just kind of get everything centered as best as possible. And then I'm going to kind of cone it up first, and we'll make the lid kind of like we're throwing off the hump. We'll get that out of the way. And so when I make lids, I do like making them off the hump, because I can kind of get like a thinner, narrower neck to it, because I don't want like a whole lot of extra clay underneath. So, you know, you're making a lid upside down, and whatever clay you have, that's what you're going to trim into the knob. That's how, at least I make them. You can always throw a knob separately. So it's kind of helpful, at least I think, to just try to reduce the amount of clay, just so you're not trimming a whole bunch. I saw someone batmate. I have actually never used a batmate. I should try one. A long time ago, you know, I learned the paper towel method. You just put a paper towel down. So that's what I did here, and that helps considerably. But a batmate is a good deal also. So again, I want this lid to be about that big, and I think it'll have just like a slight curve to it, but mostly flat. So I am going to open this up just a little bit. just going to kind of lay this down. So go in and measure, so really close. I always will usually do a little bit of trimming on the lids just to make sure they fit nicely. So that's why I'm getting, 95% of the way there with this. So we'll just pull this down a little bit more. Just about like that. So that's right on there. So the edges of the rib are right on the outside edge of the lid. And then I do want to smooth this just a hair inside. Double check. All right, and then, so underneath, I'm going to sort of go down just a little ways, make an indent. So that's going to leave enough clay to trim a foot down in there. Or sorry, not a foot, a lid, a little knob. So we'll just cut this off, set that aside. So here's the lid. I'll set that aside. So now I know I can turn this into a jar. And I think on this one, it won't be too tall. Again, I'm more going for something wide, so you can fit, again, if you make some nice big cookies, you can fit in there. I have most of this centered already, but I'm just going to come in it one more time. All right, and then I'm going to open up with the wood rib 5. Sink this down. I know, no apron. I'm risking it here. Yeah, I saw this bag of clay, and I've used it before, but it's been a little while, and I do really like it, so I thought it would be fun to try. So we got that opened up. All right, so we're gonna pull the walls in a little bit. And so for this one, I'm kind of shooting for a little bit more of a straight walled jar. So I want to make sure I'm kind of keeping track. So I'm going to have to open it up just a little bit towards the top. Because remember my lid, this is the size of my lid. So I want to make sure that will fit in my little groove. There's a lot of ways to make jars and lids and how they fit. In this case, the lid is going to fit sort of inside the rim. There'll be a little indent. There's other jars. I do make those a lot where the pot itself is somewhat normal. It just has a regular lip. And then the lid has an indent that goes inside. So a couple ways to do that. This one, I just think this style kind of, is more like traditional cookie jar, if you really want to call it that. So that's what we're doing. come up, and then I want to make sure to keep the very rim of this a little bit thicker. So I'm sort of compressing it because that's what I'm going to actually cut the indent down into. And then on the bottom, use this wood rib to sort of push things out, make sure that inside's nice and smooth. And then I want to keep in mind, I don't want to make this too much thinner because I think for carving, whether we add some underglaze or slip, I want to make sure there's enough thickness. A lot of the time, like bigger pieces like this, I like to use the X tools or get some bigger grooves, like deeper carvings, just because it's a bigger piece. And so got to keep in mind, don't go too thin. Okay. So I just kind of did one sort of pull to even everything out. Like how this is going. So now we get to do the rim. So I'm going to widen the top a little bit more. I want to make sure I'm just sort of beyond the edge of this. I think on the inside we're going to do this guy. Almost there. So I just kind of like to go delicately with this. I'll stretch it out a little bit more. All right, so we're right about there. And then I'm gonna kind of like fold the rim in and sort of make that indent at the same time. And to do that, I've been using, so on the wood rib 6, small little detail, but I'll wipe it off here. One of the corners we make sort of squared off flat. So that's on purpose. It's really great for things like this where you just need to sort of push down. And then I'm going to smooth all this out. And then I'll come back again and kind of square it up, but I just want to make sure the size is about right. Yeah, so so you can kind of tell how this, if this were the lid, that's what I used to measure, that's going to fit right in there. So come back one more time and indent this a little bit more. And then when I trim it, and you'll see this, I do like to usually trim this ledge just because it cleans it up, makes it look a little bit nicer. So we'll make sure that, again, that fits. It looks like we're good. So I'm going to leave the rim the way it is. We'll trim that later. Going to make sure that everything on the outside looks good. And we'll do a little bit of cleanup. Choose only one diamond core wood rib. Oh man, the one I use reliably every time is the 5 or the 1. They're the same size, but I use this to open up everything. And so I have talked to a lot of people who have the 1, which is just the smallest one. That really is versatile. So you can use it to open up, you can use it to throw, you can always use it to make bigger curves. You just have to move it. It's got the good scraper, so I always scrape with that edge. So if you don't have any of them and you just kind of want to try it, get the 1. Um, again, the 1 or the 5. So the 5 is a little bit longer. But that's kind of like my preference. The larger ones, they're really helpful if you start making bowls or jars or larger things. But the ones I use the most are the 1 and the 5. So I'm just scraping underneath here, and then I'm just going to wire this, but I'm not going to take it off yet. We'll just make sure it stays loose. Yeah, you got the 5. I do like the 5 because kind of like you saw here, you can reach a little bit further with it. And if you got to go down in something, it works great. It's the same size as the 1, I would say, like width, but it's just longer. So there you go. All right, so this is wired off. We got our jar and we have our lid. So these two together, and you'll see there's a little bit of roundness to this. So this jar will have like a sort of a little bit of a round dome top to it. And then for the knob, I'll trim some other examples, but the knob I'll put on this is just a little bit different style. And we'll trim that in later, so that'll be next week. And you'll kind of see how that goes. But this is good. I'm going to be able to reach in. I think it'll fit plenty of cookies. So you're able to get in, grab something, pull it out. I'm keeping in mind it is going to shrink. And so I want to make sure there's plenty of room in the lid. So bat system, these are just speedball bats that we use. It works well. So that's what I do here. So that's what we look like on the inside. We got that little lip going around, and I don't mess with it too much right now. I'm going to let all that sit up and dry, and then we'll do a little bit of trimming to clean it up, make sure the lid fits in there nicely. So there we go. All right, so that's what we got. A nice little throwing session, and I have a few other examples here that I will trim and carve. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll do a trimming demo and a carving demo, and then we'll fire these and we'll glaze them, so you'll get to see how they turn out. So anyway, there you have it. I'm gonna probably need help from Jamie to turn all these off because I'm covered in red clay. So that's what happens. But thanks for joining. And yeah, if you got any questions on these or comments, we'll post this. You can comment as usual, and we'll see you next week for some cookie jar trimming. Thanks for joining.